and welcome to Josef's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You don't need to like, follow, or subscribe to any of the videos that I put out there. Just put them out there where I can. Have a holly jolly great time doing so. Today's video, on the quicker side, so I hope. First of all, so in this video, really quickly, what are we talking about apart from a time capsule? Well, we are talking about a coastal scene, and we're going to be adding just a few extra lights. Remember, this is your country sort of style boat ramp that you come in off a dirt track and access. It's not fully serviced, it hasn't got all the amenities and luxuries that many people will have in a more regional or major type of developed town. It's all been paved and asphalted. This is pretty rough and ready, as we've discussed in the video regarding the coastal section. But we're just going to put just a couple of light posts in here, just the sort of isolated ones these days that you'd find in these places that are probably solar operated and stand there doing their job. But before we dive into it, the logistic problem that we've had over the past few years, and I am in Australia, and I just want to take a special mention because I've been using Woodland Scenics Just Plug lighting system to control all the lights on the layout. Which this is a terrible place to stand since there's really not much to actually see. I'm looking at all the lights over here and in this direction. However, underneath the board, you will find quite a few of the Just Plug light hubs to control all the lights. I love these things. I've talked about it in an earlier video. You can use them with any lights that you like to use. You don't have to stay with the Woodland Scenics brand, but the dimmer offers total and utter control to my entire lighting to make sure everything's the way I like it to be. Up to and including, you'll often find lights that do need to be run quite bright. You'll find on the dimmer I've deliberately just dialed it back maybe to the 85-90% mark, just so I'm not going to wear those LEDs out anytime soon. I'm not running them at full capacity. I'm not introducing unnecessary heat. I've just got them dialed back and they seem to be working quite nicely. But while this is a luxury way to go for a lot of people, and I take great comfort that if I didn't go down this route, there would be at least 10 to 20 new trains all over the layout. I don't have many. In fact, I've probably only got less than 10 actual DCC locomotives in my entire collection. I know, heartbreaking. But the trains come and trains go, and we'll deal with that in the future. Tremendous Christmas presents, I hope. However, these light hubs are absolutely invaluable, and I think if you're going to get the hard part, let's get it done right now. That way, as I become an old man, and oh, it's getting hard to get underneath there, all I've got to do is get under there and twist the knob to turn up and down. If I need to replace something, 2 wires in and out. So I really think it's a wise investment for those of you doing it. Finding these, however, is the next challenge. It's all good and well I'm banging on about them, but let's be sensible. Go down to any model shop in Australia and you'll probably see the Woodland Scenic stand, but probably missing these. That's because over the past year, I scooped up every single packet of these from every model shop in Australia. Everywhere in December 2024, whether you're going to Orient Express, whether you're going to Australian Modeler, Hobby Tech, Frontline Hobbies, M&K Railways, Hearns Hobbies, Hobbyco, Junction Models, all of them in Australia. It was me going to the cart. So when you see sold out, it was all me. But then I discovered quite early as I started emptying things out, the easy solution to this. Ta-da! Yes, indeed. If you're trying to find Woodland Scenics products and getting sick of being told from your local model shop or suppliers, we're still waiting on stock, which I've been waiting on stock with one particular model shop for more than 2 years, separate model altogether. Sometimes you're just going to need to go to the source. So off we go to merry old America using the internet to Woodland Scenics, find what we need, add it to the cart. Remember that while the freight gets quite expensive, you may as well get a few things. So in my case, I bought several of these and a few sets of trees. They got them in a box, and in less than 2 weeks, here it is with me. And the freight really isn't all that bad considering what I'm getting. Plus, it's exactly what I want. No compromises, no mucking around. It's a good way to go. So a box like this completely filled up, yes, I admit it probably cost about 150 Australian dollars to send it to me, but these are exactly the parts I need. And buying direct from Woodland Scenics means instead of paying some $65 for one of these light hubs, even with the American dollar converted into it, I'm paying less than $30. So half the price. So absolutely. Anyone looking for Woodland Scenics products? go to the website, do yourself a favor, and just get it. You won't be disappointed because they don't seem to be out of stock of anything. Hopefully things are going to improve in the future. But as of Christmas 2024, my Christmas has come early. Well, that's a lovely little rant there, isn't it? But Woodland Scenics, check it out. Now, let's get to our scene. Now, let's get the camera in nice and close. It is going to be quick. So really, all we've got is 1, 2, 3 lamp posts. And the lamp post that I've selected, I was trying to chase something quite specific from the coastal town that we went fishing and spent a lot of time in. We had a house down there, which is in Cowell, Franklin Harbour in South Australia, which I've mentioned on many videos, everything from the fishing trawlers to building the coastal scene and all the rest of it. So I always come back to this because it's where I grew up. And certainly at the time of, albeit the late 70s, going through to the 80s and somewhere through the 90s, the lamp posts, which looked awfully similar to what you see here, can be found now in this footage here that I managed to find someone that took a picture. Up to and including what you're seeing here is what was known as the first jetty. That is now no longer there. There are also some diesel tanks just before it. A tremendous little spot when the tide was in to catch some garfish and mullet, and tremendous fishing to be had there. Of course, everything changes. They even have different light posts at the moment. I'm sure they're all LED. But it was just that shade of greeny blue that I was looking for, because also the Cowell factory was there in a resplendent green, and this was really the color of the town that I so remember. So I wanted to get the color just right. Now, when it came to painting these, as you can see in the footage here, I'm sorry, there is no exact paint for this. I needed to take a whole bunch of different colors and keep mixing and mixing till I got the shade I wanted, using bits of verdigris, a bit of park green, down with a bit of white, using a different type of a thinner. I really had to keep mixing and mixing till I got just what I was looking for. And we only have 3 to paint, which is a bit of a shame, but so happy with this. And I roughly know the paints I used should I need to recreate something. So we're going to pop them into place. Now, as we discussed before, on the layout, there are 3 power buses running around. One is for all the track feeds for our DCC operation. Tick that box, you'll see a red and black figure 8 cable running around underneath. Then you'll see another red and black figure 8 cable, and that runs around and is just to do with all of the points. And then the third and final one, of course, is to do with accessories or the lights, in which case it's the Woodland Scenics Just Plug lighting power block on the wall plugged in, as seen in the picture here. And that comes up to a distribution point, and it feeds all of our lighting hubs and all of the lighting on the layout. Now, without doing the official count, oh, to heck with it. Let's do an official count. We are running 24 light hubs, not to mention sequences, not to mention distribution points, not to mention expansion hubs. So when people talk about how much can I actually run, when I see the diagram from Just Plug Lighting, how many things can I actually plug in and actually run? So many more. I'm pretty sure even with what I'm doing at the moment, without taking any official measurements, I'm probably using less than 20% of the total output of what that power transformer can deliver. So if you've got quite a large layout or a small one, it's very simple. Hence, Just Plug. Okay, let's get the camera in now and get started with adding these key lights, because the only thing running around where this power rail is at the moment is the accessories, which give us a red and green navigation light that are flashing at the moment. So as we come in nice and close now, you can see here are our channel markers with the red and green. So let's dive under the board and work backwards just for a moment to see what's going on. Well, here we are at the corner of the board, and obviously we've got our feeds over here for the track, which is this one bunched here, and the points. And then we actually have the accessories just hiding around the corner on me over here. And there is an accessory distribution point just in this direction. And there is our sequencing hub to which that distribution point is plugging into, that gives us the red and the green. So what we're going to do, we're going to get these holes put in and put another light hub here. Remember, this here is where our fiddle yard, which is the next part of the process, in fact, there's some track waiting to happen, is coming down the board, is going to turn around and make its way down onto this lower level so we can keep our consists of coaches and wagons built up. So there's not a lot we really need to do other than put the lights in and put the hub in. The other thing that's just worth mentioning really quickly is the cable that you can see that's powering it. We actually can split the cable straight off and send it and daisy chain accordingly. That saves us having to do an extra feed back to the distribution point. That's the process. Let's see how it goes. So you can see we dropped them in reasonably simply. Now this bit isn't absolutely essential, but it's what I've done with the other ones as well. I'll take some of this DCC Concepts weathering powder. This is the mid-grey. Any grey would do, or pastel, or whatever you're using. And this stuff really is strong and goes a long way very quickly. So I'm literally just going to touch a little bit on the end of the brush. Difficult with the camera because I can never quite get where I need to be. Good view for you, I hear you say, but horrible for me. So it looks like it was a bit of a concrete footing somewhere around it that has been at some point put in there for that light, which at this point the sand started blowing over and things like that. And as you saw when we built the boardwalk, I even created my own little concrete slabs. Just to give it a bit of an illusion, that's all. Even widening the hole, I couldn't quite get the drill in the right spot. This is where this may become a little more distinguished. Very careful, because this, as I said, drop this onto any other part of what you're doing and going to be in for a real problem. You can put this in before you do it. I usually do it after to help blend the scene in. I'm going to launch into the time lapse, but here is our light hub. I think we're literally going to just sit it back next to the other one. So what we're going to do, you can see we've got this extra slack on the cable up here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut it, and then we'll just use one of our splicers, and then we're going to feed in accordingly. Think of how good these videos would be if I was all left-handed. These are just our standard linker plugs. Again, the resistor is actually pre-done for us in this, so we're just literally going to plug them in. We've got 3 lights, so we're going to plug them in 1, 2, 3, the power in, and then that's done. One thing I like to do before I get started is always make sure all the dimmers are all the way down. They're generally all the way up. In my case, I like them down, and I'll bring them up gradually. You can see we've already tapped our feeder off, which is going to be here, only because that's as long as that length of cord is. So while I'd like to put it over there, we're obviously just going to have it sitting somewhere about here. Now, while the other lights, 1 and 2, are conveniently just where we need them, number 1, which is far over here, we'll just take an extension and run it over, or we'll run it up and around. It doesn't really matter, whatever's easiest for you at the time. The thing is, they're wired in, so I'm going to get this screwed on now. We obviously have the 2 screws that we're going to need to put it in. They also give you an adhesive little thing. Now, I still put the screws in because over time the oils in the timber are going to make any adhesive come off. That's why I'm not a big fan of those people that choose to use those cable ties that sit at the top like that. And for those of you that saw what I did when I put in the Fiddle Yard LED lighting, yes, that is the adhesives. However, they all have a drop of Gorilla Glue on them that should hold over time nicely. But the standard sort of adhesive you have will break down too quickly. But I still put this on though One, because it gives me a good holding point as I get my screws to bite in and grab it. But also, it's just that nice bit of insulation from the framework that it gives. And as always, if there's a job worth doing, let's all get it done properly, shall we? We'll keep it just on this side, so it gives us that little bit of extra finger room if you need to lift it in and out. That's one thing why you'll notice I always just keep them just toward the bottom, is where if you do need to get something out, there's just enough room for you to get fingers in to pull it out and do what you need to do. Being a left-hander, wouldn't that be something? A southpaw. Of course, you've probably seen my elbow and arm in just about every piece of the making of this video. Now, the screws don't have to go all the way. I just like to try and get them reasonably flush. And as you can see, it's the type of screw where obviously this is where the body sits and where it needs to go. So you're not going to be tempted to go in too far. We'll go back to the time lapse now as I just whack these up, and it's just a matter that red will be grey and blue will be black. If they're not, you just reverse them. Most of them, there's always some common colour to match up, whether you get some lights that just have black and white, well, black will be black. But in this situation, generally we have a red, and of course, as mentioned, and you can see in our join up here, we kept black to be black and then grey to be red. So as we come down into this situation where you say, what the heck is going on here? Well, grey is going to be red, as we discussed further back, and black obviously is blue. It's a nice way to remember it, certainly in Australia, if you don't know about your colour signals when you're doing it. Blue and black are your neutral, and red and brown are your active, with earth being green and yellow or green. But the BL and the BL, and I always remember blue being Sweden, which is neutral, so isn't that a funny thing? Time lapse. Be able to hear a spot of rain that we're getting at the moment, but we are under the board now. Here's number one. You can see we just popped it through a connector, brought it back over to here, feeding into number one. Number two, of course, is coming straight across over to here. And you can see the great thing about these is you can twist them to get them into where you need it to be. And of course, that post is wiring straight over. Number two here, as you can see, and you can twist these around to make it easier to get them in and out as needed. We won't need to put any cable support under that at all. They're going to sit there nicely, and there's plenty of wiggle room should you need to get in and do something. And of course, we have number three here, the farthest one back, which is just popping up through the hole over there. And 1, 2, 3 with a spare one in case we want to put something else in later. I'm not too sure yet, maybe an illuminated vehicle or something like that. Very handy. But now we're going to take you to the top of the board, and I'll quickly dial these up to get the illumination we're looking for. Well, here we are at the top, so let's turn these lights off. There we go. I think that's about where you want that. Number two, over the boat ramp. Looks right. I mean, we could go up, as you can see. That just feels just a notch too bright for me. And number three on the stairs, which does look a bit close together, but just here. Which is pretty much the light you would expect. Just while we're back here, just wanted to add a couple of Pelicans, which we never got around to in the first scene because they were something we were waiting on. They've arrived and been sitting here for quite some time, so let's see if we can get them into place. I think we're going to need something to hold them in place. If you want to really create a special layout, unlike the hacky one like mine, my top tip is don't film it. It's an absolute nightmare getting the camera into position in time, and often you sacrifice what you need to do for your camera and your lights. It's one of those tips I would recommend. I could just stand in that angle and use my hand. there's a couple sitting there on the rock, one over there, one in the background via that viaduct there. You got one sitting on that little sand island there. And there he is sitting across the top. And of course on the other side we do have our wonderful seagull about to take off. And this chap here with his radio control plane, he's looking at launching off. Ambitious. Well, that's going to be a wrap for that one. Well, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, as always, that's going to do it for yet another video. Thanks for your patience on this one, and this now concludes the video. I don't mind saying it for the date, Christmas 2024. We're I think just coming on the 20th of December now, so that's going to be my final shoot now for a couple of weeks, although you're not going to see this till sometime 2025. But we've got our lights in now. They sort of blend in nicely. I'm not 100% convinced they're quite this close together, and I did want to sit these ones up on the top of the stairway like what we did over at Noodle Knocker Junction, but the problem is just getting to the wiring, and it's just a little bit tight and not looking quite realistically where they were. But you could see the practicality would be they stick one up here, the light shines down over the stairway, but the height of what they are, I think that works out quite well. Gives illumination to the information sign that people might have been coming in on a twilight trail hike coming down off the mountain. So I don't think it's really all that bad at all. And now we have these wonderful pelicans, and I think that really starts to, you can feast your eyes in at this point in time and start to drink in, so to speak, the scene. But of course, that's going to do it. So as always, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll look forward to seeing you on that next one. Please do stay safe. Toodles!